peeking through a classroom window. The daughter of a madwoman, rejected by society, forgotten by the world. But today, she's no longer on the streets. She's back in school, this time in one of the best private schools in town, under the care of a powerful billionaire, while her mentally ill mother receives treatment in a top psychiatric hospital. But will her mother ever recover? Will Shola finish her education? Or will Chief Agu, like Auntie Linda before him, disappear just when she needs him most? Well, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn. This story will leave you speechless. And if you're just tuning in, please subscribe. And don't forget to like this video to support more powerful stories like this. Let's dive in. The air inside the courtroom was still, so still, it felt like time itself was holding its breath. Shola sat quietly between Chief Agu and Jessica, her palms sweaty, heart thumping in her chest like a wild drum. She wore a simple navy blue dress, freshly ironed by one of the housemaids. Her shoes, her very first pair of real leather flats, pinched her toes slightly, but she didn't mind. Today wasn't about comfort. It was about belonging. She glanced up at the towering walls, the rustle of papers, the cold faces of lawyers and reporters, the old fan rotating lazily overhead. Everything felt too big, too official. She was just a girl from the street, wasn't she? Shola Agu. Her name, spoken aloud by the judge. She flinched. Yes, sir, she whispered, barely audible. The judge was a tall man with gray sideburns and glasses that slid down the bridge of his nose every few seconds. But his eyes were kind, softer than she expected. Do you understand why we're here today? Shola swallowed. Yes, sir. Chief Agu wants to adopt me. And how do you feel about that? Her throat tightened. She looked at Chief Agu, who gave her a small nod, reassuring, steady, like the ground beneath her feet when the world shook. I feel like I'm finally home, she whispered. The judge leaned forward slightly. Are you sure you want this? You're not being forced? Shola turned to Jessica, whose eyes brimmed with silent excitement. Then she looked at the man who had once pulled her from the pit of poverty and placed her at the head of his table. No one forced me, she said louder now. I choose him. There was a murmur across the room. The judge smiled gently and turned the page before him. By the authority vested in this court in the state of Lagos, I hereby approve the petition of Chief Maxwell Agu to adopt the minor, Shola, into his legal and rightful custody. He raised the gavel. This court recognizes Shola Agu as the lawful daughter of Chief Agu from this day forward. Bang! The gavel struck wood, and something inside Shola shattered, something heavy, something old. The walls around her heart that had stood like prison gates since childhood finally crumbled. She wasn't nobody anymore. She was Shola Agu, daughter of a billionaire, daughter of love. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. She gasped as Jessica wrapped her arms around her neck, sobbing into her shoulder. We're sisters now, Jessica cried. We've always been, Shola whispered. The media outside exploded with questions as the three stepped out of the courtroom. Cameras flashed. Reporters shoved microphones in their faces. Chief Agu, why adopt a street girl? Shola, how do you feel today? Jessica, what does this mean for your family? But none of them mattered, not now. Chief Agu placed a protective hand on Shola's shoulder and said only one thing. She is my daughter, and I'm proud of her. Later that evening, back at the mansion, the staff had prepared a small, welcome celebration. Balloons floated in the living room. The cook prepared fried rice and peppered chicken. Even the housekeeper, who once frowned at Shola's dusty feet, now smiled and handed her a wrapped gift. Jessica grabbed her by the hand and led her to the dining room where a white cake stood on the table. It read, Welcome home, Shola Agu. She stood there stunned. She'd never had a cake with her name on it. She'd never even had a real birthday. Now this? Jessica handed her a knife. Cut it. Let's celebrate your new life. Shola stared at the icing, her hands trembling. But just before she cut into it, she turned to Chief Agu. Her voice quivered. Why me, sir? There are so many children like me. Why did you choose me? Chief Agu didn't speak right away. He walked to her, knelt so their eyes were level, and replied, Because when I found you, you had nothing. But you gave my daughter everything. Joy, confidence, hope. And without even knowing it, you gave me something too. A second chance to be a father. Shola's lips trembled. I don't know how to be a daughter. I've never had a family. He smiled gently. Then we'll learn together. She nodded slowly, then sliced into the cake. That night, as the celebration faded and the mansion quieted down, Shola sat on the balcony outside her new bedroom, staring at the stars. Her heart felt full, but confused. How had a girl from the gutter ended up in a place like this? God, she whispered into the night, I don't deserve this. But thank you, I promise. I won't let you down. Somewhere down the hallway, Jessica was already snoring. Somewhere across town, her mother slept in a hospital bed, still calling stars by the wrong names. And somewhere deep within her soul, Shola felt something she had never known before. Peace. Real peace, because finally, at last, she was no longer alone. She was no longer forgotten. She was home. The stage was set, literally. Red carpet lined the floor of the Grand Lagos Civic Center. Banners hung proudly across the hall reading, National Spelling Bee Championship, The Minds of Tomorrow. News crews were everywhere. Flashbulbs burst. Parents murmured nervously in the crowd. Children whispered rehearsed words under their breath. But backstage in the far left corner, Shola sat quietly, legs crossed, eyes closed. Her lips moved without sound. She was spelling, not out loud, but in her mind. CONQUERREDEMPTIONINTLLIGIBLE. Words were her comfort zone now, each one a key unlocking the doors poverty had once sealed. Jessica nudged her gently. Nervous? Shola opened her eyes. No, just ready. Jessica smiled. Let's do this. For the mango tree. Shola grinned. For the mango tree. They were among the top 5 finalists in the country, each one a child genius from a top-tier private school. All of them wore freshly ironed uniforms and confident smirks, until they saw Shola and Jessica step forward. The announcer took the stage. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are down to our final 3 contestants. Applause erupted. From Queen's Crest International, Miss Jessica Agu and Miss Shola Agu. The crowd murmured. Some whispered, that's the girl from the news. The one Chief Agu adopted. Wasn't she homeless? Shola heard them, but she didn't flinch. She looked out at the front row where Chief Agu sat in a gray caftan, calm and composed. His eyes met hers. He gave a slow, firm nod. She nodded back. The spelling rounds began. One by one, students were eliminated. Words twisted tongues. Nerves betrayed sharp minds. But Shola, she flowed like water, her voice steady, her memory flawless. Philanthropy, ecclesiastical, ubiquitous, correct, correct, correct. Jessica was just behind her, matching her for every round. The 2 girls, now known nationwide as the Queens of Queen's Crest, became the talk of the room. And then, well, it came down to just 2. Jessica, Shola, best friends, sisters, now rivals. The announcer cleared his throat. Miss Jessica Agu, please step forward. Jessica adjusted her collar and approached the microphone. Your word is chiaroscuro. Jessica blinked. Chiaroscuro. She took a breath. CHIAROSCUREO. The judge's eyebrows twitched. A buzzer rang. The announcer winced. Incorrect, it's CHIAROSCURO, no E. Jessica bit her lip, face falling, but she turned and gave Shola a thumbs up. No bitterness, no envy, just pride. It was now Shola's turn. The hall was silent. The announcer stepped forward. Miss Shola Agu, if you spell this correctly, you will be our national champion. She stepped up. Your word is epistemology. The room collectively inhaled, the kind of word that paralyzes even the best students. But Shola didn't blink. She whispered to herself, Epi means knowledge, like epiphany. Then she said it clearly. EPISTMOLOGY. A heartbeat passed. Correct! The audience exploded. Chief Agu stood. Jessica clapped so hard her palms turned red. Shola stood frozen for a moment. She had done it. From writing in the dust with a stick to holding the national trophy in her hand, she was the youngest girl in Nigeria's history to win the spelling bee. News agencies flooded the stage. Shola Agu, from street to stardom. Chief Agu's adopted daughter spells her way to history. That night, Shola and Jessica were all over social media, but not everyone celebrated. An anonymous user uploaded an old photo of Shola, barefoot, dusty, sitting beside her mother in rags. Then came the tweets. "This is the champion? A gutter girl?" Chief Agu is embarrassing his legacy. "Keep your orphans off national TV." Pity adoption for PR. The comments stung. Jessica found Shola sitting alone on the balcony that night, scrolling through the hate. "Turn it off," Jessica whispered. Shola's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. "Why do they hate me for surviving?" "They hate what they can't understand," Jessica replied. "But you don't have to let their words stick." Shola looked up. "But what if they're right? What if I don't belong here?" Jessica walked forward and hugged her from behind. "Then none of us do." Chief Agu joined them moments later. He sat beside Shola, took her phone gently, and placed it face down. "Let me tell you something," he said. "When I was a young man building my first company, people called me a bush boy with no class. Now those same people beg me for partnerships." He turned to her. "They laughed when you wrote in the dirt. Now they're choking on your dust. You don't need to prove yourself anymore, Shola. You've already done the impossible." Shola blinked away tears. "It still hurts." "I know," he said softly, "but scars make us human. Let them talk. Their noise is just proof that you're rising." Jessica smiled. "Exactly. They're watching your feet because they're scared of your wings." Shola chuckled through her tears. Then she whispered, "Let's fly, hey." The letter came in a plain white envelope. No fanfare, no golden seal, no fireworks. Just a return address stamped in tiny print. Global Scholars Program, International Education Fund, Washington, D.C., USA. Shola almost threw it away. She had applied months ago after one of her teachers secretly submitted her name, attaching a glowing recommendation in her spelling bee footage. There had been over 18,000 applicants from around Africa. The odds were laughable. Still, she had dared to hope. She sat in her room, staring at the envelope for 10 full minutes before opening it. Jessica barged in without knocking. "Are you okay? The cook said you've been quiet since morning." "I think," Shola whispered, holding up the letter, "I just got into the most prestigious scholarship in the world." Jessica froze, then screamed. That evening, the Agu mansion turned into a celebration ground. Shola had not only been accepted into the Global Scholars Program, she had ranked first out of all African applicants. Her acceptance came with a full scholarship to one of the top STEM boarding schools in the United States, a travel stipend, a laptop and learning tools, and mentorship by professors from Harvard, MIT, and Oxford. When Chief Agu saw the letter, he didn't smile right away. He just stared at it, then at her, then stood up and walked out of the room. Shola's heart dropped. Had she upset him? Was he angry? She followed him to the backyard where he stood quietly under the mango tree, their tree. She approached carefully. "Sir?" He didn't turn. "Do you know what I was doing when I was your age?" he asked softly. Shola shook her head. "I was selling kerosene by the roadside, barefoot, skipping meals so my younger brothers could eat." He turned to her then. His eyes were full, glassy. "You were sitting in the dust with nothing, teaching my daughter from scraps. Now you're going to represent this country on a global stage." Tears rolled freely now. "I'm not just proud of you, Shola. I'm honored to know you." Shola blinked hard to hold back her own tears. "I couldn't have done it without you." He walked over and placed both hands on her shoulders. "No, you did it in spite of everything. I was just a witness." News of Shola's scholarship broke the next day. Homeless girl turned national champion wins U.S. scholarship. From street to STEM, meet Nigeria's rising genius. Shola Agu makes Africa proud, TV stations called. UNICEF requested an interview. Celebrities posted her photo with captions like, black girl magic, and let's invest in education. But even as the world celebrated her, Shola's heart remained split. Because while she packed her bags and prepared for a new world, a small part of her was afraid. What if she got there and did not fit in? What if they laughed at her accent? What if she failed? The night before her flight, she sat again under the mango tree with Jessica. The breeze was soft, the moon full. Jessica plaited Shola's hair slowly, both of them in silence. "I'm going to miss you," Jessica finally said. Shola nodded. "Me too. I wish I could come with you." "You'll visit," Shola said quickly, "and I'll call every day." Jessica sighed. "Promise me something." "Anything. No matter how big your world gets, don't forget who you are." Shola smiled. "I'll never forget. I'm the daughter of a mad woman and the sister of the bravest girl. I know." They both laughed through tears. The next morning, the convoy left for the airport. Shola wore a navy blue blazer with gold buttons, the uniform of the Global Scholars Program. Her passport was tucked safely in her bag, along with photos of Jessica and a worn-out notepad she refused to throw away. As they reached the terminal, Chief Agu pulled her aside. "There's something I need to give you." He handed her a black box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a gold necklace, a small pendant carved in the shape of a mango leaf. She looked up, stunned. "I had it made," and he said, "so you'll never forget where you came from." Shola's eyes blurred with tears. He fastened it around her neck, then hugged her. The longest, strongest hug she'd ever received. "My daughter," he whispered, "fly and don't look back, unless it's to help someone else up." She nodded against his chest. "I will." As she boarded the plane, she turned one last time. Jessica stood at the glass, waving furiously, tears streaming down her cheeks. Chief Agu stood beside her, hand on Jessica's shoulder. Shola placed her palm on the window and whispered, "I'll make you proud." The engines roared. The runway stretched ahead, and with one final breath, she took off. Not just into the sky, but into destiny. 3 months had passed since Shola left for the United States. Her life had become a whirlwind of labs, libraries, and leadership seminars. She walked hallways with students from over 40 countries, discussed climate change with scientists, and presented a paper on neurological learning in children, all while wearing a badge that read, Shola Agu, Nigeria. But back home, something just as extraordinary was happening. Abini, the woman the world had called mad, was waking up. Dr. Aisha had warned Chief Agu that recovery would be slow, uncertain, and painful. "Psychosis that has lasted this long doesn't heal overnight," she had explained, "but your consistent support, the medication, and a safe environment are making a difference." At first there were only flickers, Abini blinking at sunlight without screaming, whispering lullabies instead of shouting at walls. Then came the day she asked, "Where's my plate?" like a person fully present. The medical team watched her like a miracle. By month 4, she could string conversations. By month 5, she was attending therapy and asking questions. And by month 6, the question came. "Where's my daughter?" The nurse froze. "Your daughter?" "Yes," Abini said softly, tapping her chest. "She used to call me Mummy. Where is she?" The hospital immediately contacted Chief Agu. Within hours, he booked a flight and called Shola overseas. "Your mother is coming back," he said gently, "and she's asking for you." Shola's heart skipped. Is she okay?" "She's not the same, but she's no longer lost." Tears pooled in her eyes. "I'm coming home." It was raining the morning Shola arrived at the hospital. She stepped out of the car slowly, clutching a bouquet of sunflowers. Abini's favorite, or at least the flower she used to mumble about during lucid moments. Jessica joined her, holding an umbrella over both of them. "Ready?" she asked. Shola nodded, though her stomach felt like it was in knots. They walked through the hospital's psychiatric wing, greeted by nurses who all knew her story. "She looks so much like her mother," one whispered. They arrived at the visitation room. Abini sat on a bench, staring out of the window, dressed in a clean Ankara wrapper and sweater. Her hair was combed into neat braids, her skin glowing from months of care. Shola took a deep breath, then stepped inside. "Mummy," Abini turned slowly. She blinked, paused, then tilted her head. I'm sorry, she said slowly. Do I know you? Shola's breath caught. It's me, Shola, your daughter. Abini squinted. My daughter died. They told me she fell into a gutter and the rain took her away. No, Mummy, I'm here. You used to sing me Yoruba lullabies. You called me princess. We used to beg together at mile 12. The man with the guitar gave us bread once, remember? Abini's face remained blank. She looked away, pressing her hand to her forehead. I don't remember. Shola dropped the bouquet. She sank to her knees. Jessica rushed forward, holding her. It's okay, Jessica whispered. She's trying. Give her time. But time didn't change what was already breaking. Over the next few days, Shola visited every morning. She brought her mother a new wrapper, some biscuits, an old songbook, and photos. Photos of her at Queen's Crest, at the spelling bee, even under the mango tree. But each time, Abini would smile politely, then say, You're very kind, dear, but I have no daughter. On the 6th day, Shola snapped. She stood up from her chair, voice cracking. Do you know what I went through? I bathed you with gutter water. I carried you across the street while people threw stones at us. I fed you soaked curry while I starved. I fought boys who laughed at you. And now you don't even remember me? Her mother stared blankly. Shola turned and ran out of the room. Jessica found her sitting under a mango tree planted outside the hospital garden, hugging her knees. She's gone, Shola whispered. She's alive, but she's not my mother. Jessica sat beside her. No, she's just healing. The mind heals like broken bones, not all at once, and sometimes not the way we expect. Shola wept into her arms. On her final day before returning to the U.S., she went to say goodbye. She found Abeni singing to a flower in a vase. Shola knelt beside her and said softly, Even if you don't remember me, I will always remember you. She placed a framed photo in Abeni's hands, one they had taken in the early days at Queen's Crest, under the mango tree. In it, Shola was smiling. Abeni, though wild-eyed, was laughing. Abeni stared at the photo for a long time, then said, She looks like me. Shola smiled through her tears. She is you. Abeni turned to her and placed a hand on her cheek. You have a beautiful heart, my dear. Shola placed her hand over her mother's. You gave it to me. As she walked out of the hospital, Shola whispered a silent prayer. God, if she never remembers, it's okay. Just keep her safe. Keep her smiling. That night, Chief Agu hugged her. She may not remember your face, he said, but the love you gave her, it's still there, somewhere inside, and that love made you who you are. Shola nodded. Maybe. That's enough. It began with a knock on the mansion gate. Not a loud, impatient knock, but deliberate, calculated, quiet, yet filled with intention. The gatekeeper at the Agu residence, Musa, opened the small hatch to see a man in a faded brown suit, his face weathered by time and hard living. His eyes were sharp, cold, and too familiar. I'm here to see Chief Agu, the man said. Your name, sir? He held out a stained envelope. Give him this. He'll understand. Inside the envelope was a letter. Simple. No greetings, no title. I am the biological father of Shola. Her mother's name is Abeni. I abandoned her years ago, but I have come for my child. I am ready to take her back now. Signed, Oladipo Akambi. When Chief Agu read it, something inside him hardened. The hand that had carried Shola, fought for her, adopted her, now trembled, not out of fear, but fury. He took a deep breath, then called Shola. When she walked into the study, she saw a man sitting across from Chief Agu, tall, dark-skinned, with a crooked smile and eyes that scanned her like property. Shola paused at the door. Chief Agu stood. Shola, this is Mr. Oladipo. He claims to be your biological father. The room froze. She blinked. My what? The man stood and nodded. You've grown. You look just like your mother. She backed up slightly. How do you know her? He shrugged. She was mine, long ago, until she went mad. Shola felt her knees weaken. Jessica, standing quietly in the corner, stepped closer to her. You abandoned us, Shola whispered. I didn't abandon, Oladipo replied coolly. I left. There's a difference. Your mother was never stable. She was dangerous. I couldn't raise a child in that mess. You told her to abort me, Shola said, her voice cracking. She told me. And you disappeared for over a decade. I was scared, he barked. I was young. I had nothing. But now, you're somebody. You're a star. I came to take you home. Chief Agu's voice sliced through the air. She has a home, Oladipo sneered. You think money makes you her father? You think adoption papers erase blood? She's my daughter in every way that counts, Chief Agu said calmly. You only showed up after the world began clapping. Oladipo stepped forward. I don't want your money, sir. I just want my child, my flesh, my legacy. Shola stood frozen between two men, one who helped create her body, the other who saved her soul. I don't even know you, she whispered. You weren't there when I was sick, when I slept in gutters, when I begged for food, when I held my mother as she screamed in the middle of traffic. You weren't there. I didn't know you were alive, he shouted. Yet you knew to come when I made headlines, Shola replied. Oladipo's eyes narrowed. If you don't come willingly, we can take this to court. You're a minor, and I'm your blood. Silence. Then Chief Agu nodded. Fine. We'll let the court decide. And so it began. The legal battle shook the city. Social media buzzed. Some supported Oladipo. He made a mistake, but he's still her father. She has a right to know her real roots. Others stood with Chief Agu. A man who runs from fatherhood should never be allowed to return just to reap glory. Shola was a street girl until Chief Agu stepped in. Blood doesn't raise a child, love does. The court demanded DNA testing. It confirmed it. Oladipo was Shola's biological father. But the final verdict depended on one thing, Shola's own testimony. Would she return to a man who left her for dead, or stay with the one who fought to bring her back to life? The courtroom was silent, yet it roared with tension. Papers rustled, shoes scraped. A dozen reporters huddled near the back, pens poised. But all eyes were on one girl, Shola. She stood alone, small in size, but towering in presence. Her braids were pulled neatly into a bun. She wore a navy blazer with gold buttons, Queen's Crest uniform. Her posture was straight, but her fingers trembled ever so slightly. The judge adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. Miss Shola Agu, before this court gives its ruling, you have the right to be heard. Who do you choose to be your legal guardian going forward? For a moment, no one breathed. Shola took a step forward and looked at the two men seated at opposite sides of the courtroom. To the left sat Oladipo Akambi, her biological father. He wore a borrowed suit and had a legal team behind him, paid by a sponsor who smelled publicity. He looked uncomfortable in the role of father, but desperate for relevance. To the right sat Chief Maxwell Agu, dignified in a dark blue caftan, his eyes calm but unreadable. He hadn't said much throughout the trial, letting his love and his record speak louder than any testimony. Shola turned back to the judge. Her voice was soft at first. When I was born, one man gave me life, but then he left. She swallowed hard. My mother begged him to stay. He walked away. He never returned, never checked on us. Not once. Not when we slept in gutters. Not when we were starving. Not when people called us cursed. Her eyes filled, but she held her composure. I used to dream he'd come back and say sorry. That he'd kneel down and hug me and say, I was wrong. But he didn't. He only came back when I was on the news, when I won. When I was worth something. She turned to look directly at Oladipo. I forgive you, sir, but I don't owe you my future. The courtroom shifted. Whispers, stunned glances. Shola turned again to Chief Agu. But this man found me in rags, under a mango tree, teaching his daughter with a stick in the dirt. I didn't ask for help. I didn't even know how to ask. But he gave me more than help. She placed a hand on her heart. He gave me a name, a bed, a toothbrush, a chance, she smiled. He taught me what it means to be loved. And never once has he asked for anything in return. Tears now streamed down her cheeks, but her voice only grew stronger. So I choose him, I choose Chief Maxwell Agu, not because he's rich, not because he's famous, but because he saw me when the world walked past me. She turned back to the judge. I choose the man who gave me life by loving me, not just the one who helped me exist. Silence. Then a single clap. It came from the back of the room. Jessica, who had snuck into the gallery, her eyes wet with pride. More claps followed. The judge tapped his gavel gently. This court hereby rules in favor of continued custody under Chief Maxwell Agu. All biological claims are considered closed. This case is settled. Outside, the media swarmed. Microphones, cameras, flashes. Shola, what do you say to those who say blood is thicker than water? Did you reject your father for money? What happens to your real family now? Shola simply raised her chin and said, love is thicker than blood, and walked into Chief Agu's waiting arms. That evening back at the mansion, there was no party, no press conference, just peace, the kind of quiet that wraps around you like a warm blanket. Jessica, barefoot, sat cross-legged on the rug as Shola curled up beside her on the couch. I was scared, Shola whispered. Jessica grinned. You didn't look scared. You looked like a queen. Shola smiled, but her eyes turned distant. 10 years later, the once dusty courtyard of Queen's Crest International School now had a golden plaque near the front gate, in honor of Shola Agu, from street to scholar. Inside the grand event hall, lights shimmered from crystal chandeliers, soft music played from a string quartet, and guests in suits and gowns gathered in celebration. Cameras flashed as two women stepped onto the red carpet arm in arm. Dr. Shola Agu, now 22, radiant in a fitted green gown, her name embroidered in gold thread along the hem. And beside her, Barrister Jessica Agu, dressed in deep blue, the same color she wore the day they met under the mango tree. The two sisters, one student and teacher, now stood as equals. Icons, leaders, change makers. Shola had just completed her medical degree with distinction. But not just any medical degree. She specialized in neuropsychiatry, the very field that once defined her deepest wound. She now walked hospital corridors with confidence, diagnosing patients, treating trauma, and restoring dignity to those whom the world had labeled crazy. Because she knew their pain. She had lived it. She had held her mother's hand when no one else would. Jessica, on the other hand, had become one of Nigeria's youngest and most fearless human rights lawyers. She defended children accused of witchcraft, advocated for prison reform, and was known in the courts as the voice of the voiceless. But tonight they weren't in court or at a hospital. They were at the official launch of their joint foundation, the Mango Tree Foundation for Mental Health and Dignity, a nonprofit built to provide free mental health care, safe homes, therapy, and rehabilitation to mentally ill individuals and their families across Nigeria, especially the poor, the homeless, and the forgotten. As the program began, the MC took the stage. Tonight, he said, we celebrate not just two brilliant women, but a vision born from ashes, a friendship born under a mango tree, and a love story not of romance, but of redemption. Applause thundered. Jessica stepped up first. She took a deep breath, scanning the crowd. I remember being called dumb, she began, her voice calm but strong. I remember teachers rolling their eyes when I raised my hand. I remember feeling small, unworthy, invisible, until a barefoot girl in rags taught me that my mind was not broken. It was just waiting for the right teacher. She turned to Shola and smiled. She was that teacher. The crowd clapped as Jessica stepped back and gestured for Shola to come forward. Shola approached the mic, holding a small notepad, not because she needed it, but because she still carried reminders of where she came from. I was called the daughter of a madwoman, she said plainly. I was chased from schools, slapped by strangers, and laughed at while my mother begged for bread. The hall grew quiet. I never thought I'd be standing here, let alone wearing a doctor's coat, let alone opening a foundation. But I'm here because one man saw me, one girl believed in me, and one mango tree became my classroom. You know, for a long time, I thought being wanted by my real father would fix something. Like maybe if he came back, it would heal the hole I carried. Jessica was quiet. But now I know that hole was filled a long time ago, not by him, but by all of you, by Dad, by you, by this home. Jessica leaned over and rested her head on her sister's shoulder. You were never missing a father, Shola. You were just waiting for the right one. Later that night, as guests sipped juice and celebrated, Chief Agu stood in a quiet corner of the courtyard, smiling silently as he watched the two young women. Jessica was speaking to a judge from Abuja. Shola was laughing with a group of international doctors. Two girls he had once called my daughters, now leaders in their own right. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God. You gave me daughters I didn't ask for, but I will spend my life protecting." The following week, the foundation opened its first facility. It was a bright, clean space in Lagos mainland, offering free therapy, medication, meals, and shelter to people suffering from schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, postpartum depression, and trauma. The reception area had a mural on one wall, a large painting of a mango tree, with two girls sitting underneath it, one in a blazer, one in a ragged dress, both smiling. Above them were words written in golden ink, "Wounds can teach what textbooks cannot. Dignity is a human right. No mind is too broken to heal." On the day of the ribbon cutting, a familiar face walked in. Abini, Shola's mother, now stable, living in a group home and helping teach art therapy to other patients. When she saw the mural, she paused. "That's beautiful," she whispered. "It looks like someone I used to know." Shola smiled from behind the desk. She didn't correct her. She didn't need to, because some memories live in the heart, even when the mind forgets. And so, the daughter of a madwoman became a healer of the mind, and the girl once called dumb became a defender of truth. Together they built not just a foundation, but a future. The sun was beginning to set over Lagos, casting long golden shadows across the courtyard of the newly opened Mango Tree Foundation. Children played by the side garden. A woman in a lilac headscarf swept the front steps, humming softly. Inside the hall, soft gospel music played over the speakers as nurses handed out evening medication to the residents. But outside, under the real mango tree planted at the center of the compound, Shola sat alone, barefoot, peaceful, no security guards, no cameras, no media attention. Just her, a gentle breeze, and the quiet rustle of mango leaves overhead. She was no longer the girl who had hidden behind school windows. She was Dr. Shola Agu, one of the youngest neuropsychiatrists in the country. But even with all the titles and accolades, she still returned to this tree, because it was under a mango tree where her life had changed, where she first taught, where she was first seen, where hope was born. Footsteps approached behind her. "You're hiding again," Jessica teased, plopping beside her on the grass in a crisp white blouse and black heels. "I'm reflecting," Shola replied, eyes still closed. Jessica grinned. Same thing." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky change color. "Do you ever miss it?" Jessica asked suddenly. "Miss what?" "The mango tree at Queen's Crest. The way we used to sneak lunch together, solve math problems, and dream about what we'd become." Shola opened her eyes and smiled. "I don't miss it. I carry it." Jessica turned. "What do you mean?" Shola pointed to her chest. "It's here. Every time I speak to a patient who's forgotten their name. Every time I hug a mother who thinks her child is cursed. Every time I see a girl with a notepad under a bridge. I remember who I was, and I remember what we built." Jessica nodded, emotion catching in her throat. "You think people will ever stop judging the mentally ill?" Shola was quiet for a moment, then said, "Maybe not. But even if they don't, they'll never be able to say again that no one cared." Later that evening, the foundation held a quiet memorial in honor of a patient who had passed away, an elderly woman who died peacefully in her sleep, holding a photo of her son she hadn't seen in 30 years. Shola led the prayer. Afterwards, she stood with the woman's daughter, holding her hand. "She was not mad," Shola said. "She was misunderstood, and now she is free." The woman wept into her arms. Jessica watched from a distance. "She's not just a doctor," one of the nurses whispered nearby. "She's a light." And truly, Shola had become more than her name. She had become a symbol of survival, of education, of second chances. That weekend, Chief Agu threw a private dinner in the mansion garden. Just family and close friends. Abini was there, sitting gracefully, her eyes clearer than they had ever been. She no longer remembered the streets or the voices that haunted her, but she remembered music. She sang softly that night as a young boy strummed a guitar nearby. Shola watched her from across the table, holding back tears. Jessica leaned in. She may not remember you fully, but you made her whole again. Shola nodded, and that's enough. Later that night, Chief Agu stood to give a toast. To daughters, he said, raising his glass. Daughters who remind us that family isn't who we create, it's who we fight for. He looked at both girls. You saved my life, each in your own way, and through you, many more will live. Shola stood next. She turned to him. I used to beg the stars to just see me, not to rescue me, not to make me rich, just see me, and then one day a man did. She raised her glass. To the man who didn't just see a madwoman's child, but saw a daughter. The room went silent. Then applause erupted. As the night wound down, Shola returned to her room, the same guest room that had become hers over a decade ago. She opened her drawer and pulled out her most prized possession, a small old notepad with frayed edges. Inside were faded scribbles, math problems written with charcoal, vowel sounds from the day she hid by the window, even Jessica's name written in shaky handwriting with a blunt pencil. She held it to her chest and whispered, I made it, Mama. The next morning, as the gates of the Mango Tree Foundation opened to welcome a new batch of patients and volunteers, Shola stood at the entrance beside Jessica. They wore matching shirts with the foundation's logo. Below the logo were the words, No one is too broken to be healed. Shola looked at the crowd, young people, elderly women, teachers, university students, journalists, all inspired by what two girls under a mango tree had started. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Today, across Nigeria, the Mango Tree Foundation has opened 6 centers in 5 different states. Thousands have been treated, hundreds reunited with families, and dozens have gone on to become advocates themselves. But it all began with a homeless girl, a broken mother, a window, a friendship, and a mango tree. Shola's name is now listed among Nigeria's most influential young women. But if you ask her where it all started, she'll smile, point to her heart, and say, right there, in the dirt, with a pencil and a dream. Shola's story reminds us that no child is born worthless, and no condition makes someone unlovable. It proves that one act of kindness, one chance, one friendship, can spark a legacy that changes the world. Share your thoughts in the comments. What touched you most in this journey? Don't forget to like this video if it inspired you. Share with someone who needs hope today. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next powerful story. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, there is always hope, even under a mango tree.